All right, let's go ahead and get started if everybody's ready. My name is Ryan Rusnak. I'm a planner with the City of North Liberty. And thank you for attending this good neighbor meeting. The zoning ordinance requires a good neighbor meeting before the city can formally accept a rezoning application. It's my understanding a rezoning application is forthcoming probably right after this, or we will accept it right after this meeting or tomorrow. They have been talking with the contract purchasers team, and they are proposing to do a request for a office research park zoning. So it's anticipated that this would go to the Planning Commission on May the 4th. And then the last fourth Tuesday of the month in May for City Council first reading, and then the second and fourth Tuesday of the month in June for 3 full readings for a rezoning to be approved. I won't necessarily talk about what the proposal is. I'll let the contract purchasers team do that. But the idea here is to hear any concerns or questions that people have. And certainly we don't want to wait to any public hearings and have people say, you know, I'm curious about what's happening here. So this is really meant for the developer or contract purchaser to kind of just talk through what they're requesting. I'm here to answer any procedural questions or anything about city regulations or things like that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan or Peggy.
All right. Well, as I think most people are probably aware, the Physician Building Group, which is, for lack of a better term, a subsidiary of Steinler Orthopedic, has purchased this parcel and is interested in developing it into office medical designation. So they would look to move their headquarters here sometime in the next, not quite sure on the timing, and perhaps looking for the development of this parcel to have similar use throughout the 40-acre development, give or take, on the acres. But that is the reason for the rezoning. You'd anticipate that the office research park would provide the greatest flexibility and be the best fit for Steinler's intended use, as well as any potential use by another medical provider.
And Ryan, just want to just state that the city hasn't seen any site plans really for development. Nothing's been drawn up or provided at this point. So we really don't quite know what we're looking at. So this is just strictly a rezoning to go through the process. Once a site plan would be submitted to mean that the property is ultimately rezoned, then that would go through Planning Commission and City Council as well.
Yeah, and I don't have any further details regarding a site plan to be able to share at this point.
So I guess there's probably not much more to add, Ryan. And if not, I'll just say we can open it up if people have questions or comments or objections or support or whatever.
Ryan, I had emailed a list of questions to the communications email that was on the letter. Did you guys get those?
So first question is, if the zoning is approved, where will the road outlet to Kansas Avenue or Forevergreen Road? Right now, my understanding, it's just based on this location, it would have at a minimum one access on Kansas. So at this point, not proposing to have any direct access to Forevergreen Road. And I would think that would be a limited access anyway. Tree plantings along Kansas Avenue. Yes, and actually the Office Research Park requires one of our larger landscape buffers for parking lots. So we would anticipate a pretty well buffered use with landscaping. And And the office research park is meant to be more of kind of a campus feel, so we would anticipate that. Parking lot lighting, typically we will look at photometrics during site plans, but those will be downcast lighting with kind of like a shoebox type, but yeah, oriented away from the street and residential uses. There's a fair list of uses. Bev, I can send that to you, what the permitted uses are. Might be able to pull it up here. But these are the types of uses that are permitted, like banks, health clinics, educational research development, basically research and design, hospitals, institutions, hotels, offices. It's a little bit more limited than what we would normally see in like an outright commercial use. So I think we would expect to see somewhat more of what we're seeing at the north end of Kansas on the west side, where the Geico and the Green State is. That's all office research park. And that'll give you an idea of kind of the style of development that we would expect as well.
Well, how many do they anticipate? Is it just going to be for Steinler, or do they anticipate other businesses being in there other than Steinler?
Ryan or Peggy, you want to answer that?
Well, we don't have anything concrete in place at this point. It would be our hope that we would be able to find an ancillary business that would like to take a portion of the property. I don't anticipate that Steinler would need to use all the entirety of that parcel. But our goal would be to find essentially a medical partner, if at all possible.
It wouldn't be a multi-use look. It would be a campus. Maybe one other partner. Probably not more than 2 partners.
And I see a question, Bev, you had about hours of operation and days. I mean, Peggy or Ryan, would this be more office setting with typical office hours?
I don't know that we can say that yet. It depends on the partner's use. If there's surgical suites, definitely weekday, and it just depends on the rehab schedule.
Yeah.
Which is mostly weekday now.
Okay. And Bev, you had a question about current zoning, versus proposed. Currently it's zone ID, which is our interim development. So that's really a holding pattern zoning. There's not many uses you can do that. You can do agricultural uses, you can have a house, but it's meant to very, very limited until you choose a rezoning. I can tell you on our long range plan, comprehensive plan, we call for this area to be commercial.
I guess I just have obvious question or, concerns, being a house and traffic in and out where the driveway would be. And, because we live here, it's not like we rent this place out or just farm and live somewhere else. So I obviously have concerns of how my place is going to be lit up. Is it going to be lit up? Is the parking going to be right next to the road? Will it be next to the interstate? What? And obviously some of that you probably can't tell me until you see the site plan, which is that something you could share before or as it goes to council, or your planning and zoning, or how can that work so I can see it and ask questions?
I've been talking with the contract purchasers representatives for quite some time, and I haven't even seen a concept yet. I would envision, although maybe not the same height, but it to be similar in style to like a Geico or a Green State, because that's what this zoning is. So like I said, I would envision probably parking toward the front with the building pushed toward the back, although you might have some other medical uses towards the front. But I wouldn't anticipate that they would have any site plan ready just because just from my conversations with them, I know that they wouldn't be able to commit to how a style is. But Bev, I can send you all the requirements for what the office research park requires, because I sent it to them, and what setbacks are and landscaping and things like that.
Yeah, because I just have concerns, because I can see the Green State sign from here, and it's obviously light because it's lit up at night, and so those are just concerns, because I'm an open house person and have no curtains on my windows because we were in the country when this all started. So I might have to buy some, but I like to see out. That's why I have windows in my house. So those are concerns I have. I don't want light shining in my windows when somebody's going in or out at night, and there's people going to be going in and out. So I just have those types of concerns.
Sure, those are valid concerns. Certainly, assuming if this moves forward tonight, I'm happy to share any site plans that come forward with you.
That'd be great. I don't have any probably more questions at this time. So when Ryan said move the headquarters there, does that mean like just their office type personnel, or will that be still open for patients to come in and out? What did he mean by that?
I meant the current business operations that Steinler has currently off of Dodge Street, Northgate Road would all be relocated to this development. So they would see patients. Their administrative staff would be there as well.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, is that good, Bev? Did you get that answered?
Yeah, that was fine. He just said headquarters, and to me that maybe meant just the office personnel that runs their billing and all that, but.
Yep. Certainly, if you have other questions as they come up, please, send them my way. I see a couple other people on this. Anybody else have any questions or they want to voice any concerns?
Sorry, I just came in late to me. My name is Ryan McFadden, and just real quick, so this land is looking for more medical for Steinler, correct, as another campus?
So this would be eventually relocating the Steinler office from Iowa City to this location.
Sounds good. Thank you for your clarity.
Sure.
The other one I did have is regarding his services such as water and sewer. Would that be developed through this time, and do we know a timeline for this?
Yeah, so we are have a contractor out doing work now, putting a pump station in on the west side of I-380. I understand there was a small incident today out there, but they are putting pipe underneath the interstate to get to the other side. And they're be dropping a sanitary sewer manhole actually on this property. And then really this is the central point that we anticipate the entire Southwest, eventually everything will flow to this point. And so sewer is going to need to be brought from this site to basically property lines, but there's a stub going northeast and south to accommodate development. So they will be hooking into this sanitary sewer. Our contractor was supposed to be done at the end of May. I don't quite think they're going to make that, but we are supposed to come online this year.
Thanks, Ryan.
Turn yours off. You gotta turn it off. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is Greg Smalley,
Greg?
under Wendy's name. Hey,
Can they hear you?
can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you just
Okay.
fine.
Just a second.
There, go ahead.
I had a question on the procedure is when would you get a site plan or know where the streets are going to go and how the stormwater is taken care of and kind of the timing on the site plans and the projects to be able to look at it, you know, besides just a blank piece of land with some stripes drawn across it that they want to build something there.
And that's going to be all, you know, developer driven basically. And I know based on our conversations, they weren't looking to get into it and spend a lot of money on engineering at this point in time until they know they've got the zoning in place. So I don't know if Ryan or Peggy, if you want to talk about some ballpark idea of when the property would be developed. I don't know if you're able to share that or if you even know the answer to that.
Yeah, it would be pretty speculative to provide any time frame at this point. This really is kind of the first domino that we would need to fall, and then from this point we can start doing some further due diligence, and it'll be a while before we get into any concept plans. So by a while I mean several months would be my best guess. You know, on the quick end, 3 would be surprising to me.
Good.
So what would be the procedure for keeping track of where you're at and when you get to that point of even the rough ideas on the road locations and what they're thinking about doing with the stormwater? How do we know that you're to that point? Is there notification that it gets filed with the city, or is it right when you have when you're applying for a building permit, or is it you take it to the city and say, okay, now we have some more information. Do we have another good neighbor meeting, or just kind of how does that work?
Yeah, so the normal process would be that if they get their rezoning, then they go through a site plan process, and that goes through planning commission, which is a public meeting, and city council, which is a public meeting. We don't normally do good neighbor meetings associated with that, but I know who the property owners are in this area, so my plan would be just to kind of keep you guys apprised of what's going on and just share updates with you. Greg and Wendy and Bev, just as they come through. So that would just be my intention. I mean, if I know people are interested in what's going on, and I knew you guys would be, then my plan would just be to share and give you updates of what's going on. I wouldn't anticipate, and I could be wrong, a lot of roads being, planned through this development. They would at most probably be, kind of private drives or something like that. There might be a cross access with the parcel to the south, but I anticipate, like Peggy said, that this would probably be a campus style development with, most likely more than one access onto Kansas. You might have turn lanes or things like that. I mean, we haven't gotten that far just because we don't know how much development the property is going to traffic is going to be generated, because we don't know exactly what's being developed. But that's kind of what I'm picturing is a campus of a couple of buildings with, a couple accesses off of Kansas and kind of an internal drive, but not anything that I would consider a public street network, at least. But this is just what I'm picturing in my mind.
Ryan?
Yeah, Alan, go ahead.
And wouldn't it be accurate for, Greg and Wendy's question to say that as they start to go through the planning and zoning process, at that time, they'll be submitting formal plans, which the public then gets to review, and that's part of that public approval process. So, Greg, it's a very open public process by nature. Maybe you could describe that a little for his benefit.
Yeah, so normally when we see site plans and at the City of North Liberty, what we require is in order to go, these are basically the construction plans that are going through Planning Commission and City Council. Some places do it a little bit different, but here at City of North Liberty, they have to basically pay for and fully engineer the site. Those get submitted to staff. Staff does a technical review of that. We, provide request additional information or plans to be modified to meet city codes. And then once it gets through and staff satisfied that it meets all codes, then it goes to the Planning Commission. Alan's correct. It's a public meeting. Planning Commission considers it, makes a recommendation, and then ultimately it moves on to City Council, and they have their own public meeting, and they will formally vote to approve or deny the site plan. So that's the process in a nutshell. It's similar in a way to a rezoning. You just don't have those additional readings at City Council.
So the question I would have is, when you want to express some concerns or talk about the development as they are starting to try to lay it out, does that information go to you and you pass it on to the other people, or do we try to contact them directly and go over, kind of what their idea was and what concerns we'd have, so that we don't get to the point where we have this site plan and then have to go back and express our views after they had the opportunity at least to take it into consideration when they were doing their site plan?
Yeah, knowing that you're interested in this and on this call, I would reach out to you, Greg, with concepts and say, this is what we're looking at. Kind of what are your feelings on this?
So I would let you know what my concerns are and what sort of things we were thinking about, and then you would go ahead and pass those on if I got what you just told me, correct?
Yeah, and I prefer that to be the case, just so I'm in a position of sharing what information you provided to me to elected and appointed officials.
That works for me. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Fire away.
I know that with this I know that Forevergreen Road and Kansas Ave are becoming very busy, and I know there's temporary lighting up on the interstate. I'm assuming as the south side of Kansas Ave is developed, will there be street lights at the T intersection there of Kansas and Forevergreen? Or how does the city plan on monitoring the traffic flow through there? Because it's kind of hairy already, and then with more development of housing and whatnot in the area.
Sure, great question. We work with our MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we just recently put in a request, and what we do is we ask them to perform a study called basically a signal warrant analysis. So we've asked them. So basically what we do is we monitor it with development, and then we ask the MPO from time to time to see if basically a signal is warranted. I'm positive at this point. I don't think it is warranted at this time, as I recall it, but it's something that we continually monitor and ask them to analyze every couple of years or so.
Ryan, I have a couple more questions. If nobody else has anything at the current time, I'll let them ask first if they do. Okay, you mentioned the driveways. When they installed Kansas Avenue a couple of years ago, they told us, Ryan, Hire, and Drive Hattery, what's his name?
Kevin Traum.
Kevin Traum said that there was only going to be driveways where they are like now, Is that still true? Because, you know, like I know on the west side, there's 2 driveways going into that property, I believe. Is that where the roads will come out then? Because that's what they told us, that there was only going to be driveways where they were before. And then you were talking about turn lanes possibly and et cetera. I guess that concerns me. If they move a driveway up closer to our place with turn lanes and stuff, it'll just create that much more traffic and, you know.
Well, I'm not aware of that conversation, but I can follow up with Ryan and Kevin and respond to you.
Okay, because I just know they asked us how many we wanted into our property. We had 3 and we wanted to keep all of them. So I know that's what they told us, is that they weren't going to add any more driveways than what was either here. And then another comment or question, I know in the past there's been site plans done, but they're not always, don't get built as what you see on the site plans and what gets approved. Is that, you know, because sometimes things change, but it's already been, you know, they show the planning and zoning a site plan and then things change after it gets approved by planning and zoning.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons they don't want to show a concept plan, because they don't know. And so I think at this point they would just be guessing about where things are arranged. And then, yeah, that leads to the concern that somebody says, hey, you told me it was going to look like this. I can tell you that when the site plan eventually goes to Planning Commission, that is a fully engineered site plan. So they're spending real money to get to a point to construct plans. So I'm confident that once a formal site plan gets submitted to Planning Commission and City Council, it's going to look like that.
And then can you tell me what is the optimum, is there an optimum type or amount of businesses that can be placed on this? Or, you know, they're talking 2, maybe 3, but that's talking now. Is there like a limit of how many they can have on this zoning part? Or is it, you know, because people change their mind, things develop, things change. So is there a top amount that can happen in this land, or?
Not necessarily from a hard number of, 3 to 4 businesses. It's more determined based on all of our municipal codes with respect to the number of parking spaces that they're required to provide, the amount of green space that they're allowed, that they need to provide, as well as they need to provide stormwater detention in this area. So those things tend to be the limiting factors for any development. And so, the more impervious surface you have, the more stormwater you've got to, water quality you've got to maintain. So that tends to be the driving factor of limiting businesses, as opposed to any hard number that we would provide from zoning.
But this zoning doesn't allow for apartments on top of small businesses like what we have north of us by Casey's, or not as far as Casey's, but there's been not a business in that, but it's all apartments or condos or whatever they call them above it, but there's no businesses like planned. They're empty, and they've been empty since they've been built.
Right. No,
so there's no residences in this zoning.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen with the east side, but I kind of, but and then again, I don't know what's happening with commercial development with post-COVID. But I would anticipate with this location, and I know the Steinler Group was very interested in this location because of interstate access. So in my mind, I'm picturing, at least for this property in South, kind of commercial development. I'm not sure if we'll see a hotel, because there's a lot of hotels, in Coralville and those, but that's kind of what I'm picturing for this area.
My honest truth is I pictured farmland because when we bought this place, it was all farm. So your picture and my picture is a lot different. But those days pass, so I gotta get to the 20th century.
Yeah, it's changed a little. Okay, anybody else?
All right, just like you said, if you get stuff, if you could email it at least to us property owners, or I'd appreciate a notice when they're going to council, because I don't always check North Liberty website to see what's on the agenda for each planning and zoning or whatever. So if you know this is going to be on the agenda, a quick email or send the agenda or something would be appreciated, at least on my end. I don't know about Greg and Wendy and whoever else is listening, but I would appreciate that information.
Yep, happy to do it.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I think that's everything. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of at City Hall. So if you have additional questions or you want to make comments or just call and say hi, you're welcome to contact me.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for doing this for the neighborhood.
Yep. Thanks, Alan.